you can't really say like, yep, it's not going to hurt at all, because it's a small creature sucking on your anatomy upwards of 8+ times a day. And so I always say there's an initial tenderness that does occur. And if it hurts, like it's toe curling, then we have to break it down and we say, is there a mom issue and something we can look at with her anatomy? Or is it a baby issue? Is the baby got oral anatomy changes? Did dad have a tongue tie? Like, you kind of look at the whole picture.
Hi, I'm Crystal Luce, Professor of Education.
And I'm Aimee Ketchum, Pediatric Occupational Therapist.
Welcome to Plant the Seed of Learning, the podcast where we merge education and medical models to bring you science-based practical insights on all things early childhood.
Whether you're a parent, teacher, therapist, or policymaker, we're here to help you support children from the start. So welcome. Today we have a very interesting guest. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today, Donna Sinnott, also affectionately called Boob Donna. She is an internationally board certified lactation consultant, birth doula, and postpartum doula with roots in hospital-based lactation care. Between her hospital work, volunteer efforts, and private practice clients, Donna has helped an estimated 40,000 plus families on their breastfeeding journeys. She currently serves as Director of Growth in Maternal Health Services for Wildflower Health and is considered a national advisor to the IBCLC's consultants. In 2002, she received a March with Dimes Women of Achievement Award in the field of health. She was instrumental in the 2007 passage of Pennsylvania's Freedom to Breastfeed Act, and her conversation with Representative Chrissy Houlihan about the value of donor milk helped inspire the bipartisan Federal Access to Donor Milk Act. Wow. We are so excited to have you. Welcome. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I could talk for 12 hours about all things boob and breastfeeding, so we'll try to keep my answers condensed.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much for joining. So we're going to start with a segment that we like to do on our show, Fact or Fiction. So let's start with our question, Crystal. It's okay to combine breastfeeding and formula if that's what works best for your family. Is this fact or fiction?
Fact.
Absolutely fact. Many families successfully use a combination of breast milk and formula. The best feeding plan is one that supports both the baby's growth and the family's well-being. So before we start today, I want to say, as always, our goal on Plant the Seed of Learning is to share the science while honoring every family's story. We know there is not one path that's right for everyone, and we hope this conversation leaves you feeling informed, supported, and empowered. We are so excited to jump into our questions. We have so much to talk about. So before we dive into breastfeeding, Donna, I have to ask, where did the name Boob Donna come from? Yes, I'd love to hear the story in your own words.
So I always like to tell people I've been in the land of boobs and babies for a very long time. I'm even a grandmother now, and I know I don't look it, but
you do not.
Appreciate it, darling. So in the hospital that I worked at, I started out early on and I did private practice and doula work and all of that. And so local hospital needed help on the weekends. And so my wonderful friend Beth, who was the lactation consultant, said, well, I know somebody, her name's Donna, and she could come help. And so I first started working weekends at the hospital, and then I started working full-time, primarily Tuesday to Saturday, when that's when the bulk of families are. So as I integrated into the job full-time, there were 4 Donnas working on that maternity unit at the same time. Okay. So out of desperation on a very busy day, one of the nurses like, I need Donna. And they're like, which one? Boob Donna, the one for the boobs, not Nurse Donna, Boob Donna. And when you work in a maternity unit of over 100 plus people, you're trying to figure it out. So there was, Nurse Donna, Boob Donna, Night Nurse Donna, Tech Donna. It was a little complicated, but
sure.
the purpose, you both did the perfect reaction, is because it makes people smile too. It puts people at ease.
Yeah.
When they know Boob Donna's coming to talk to you in the hospital, they feel like, ooh, that sounds like an authority. And then I usually walk in and introduce myself, and because that's, part of taking care of patients is say, who you are. And I would be like, hi, Boob Donna's here. I'm here to answer any of your questions and help you. And it just diffuses any stressful situation as well. So I own it. It's trademarked. It's all me.
Oh my
Oh my
God.
God, that's wonderful. Love it.
Well, breastfeeding is so important, but boobs can be awkward. People get
Yeah.
nervous talking about boobs, or if a situation arises with breastfeeding, sometimes people feel defeated. And I love that you've supported over 40,000 plus families over the years. If you think about the families, what are three biggest misconceptions about breastfeeding that you wish every new parent understood before their baby was born?
Yeah. Great question. There's the simple ones. The simple answer is you have to have big boobs to make milk. That's not true. Any breast size, it's demand creates the supply. That's the first thing. The second one is that it'll tie you down and you can't have a life, and that's not necessarily true either. And we'll talk about that more in a second. And that it's an all or nothing activity, and so that's the biggest misconception. As you pointed out in the beginning, it's not an all or nothing activity. It's kind of an all in activity in the first 2 weeks, and that's what people need to understand. So to build a milk supply, your body's waiting for those messages to say, how big's this baby, how hungry, how early. And so getting up to breastfeeding 8 or more times in 24 hours builds that supply. And then once you have that supply, you actually have that same amount almost the whole time. Your baby adapts, grows bigger, the belly gets bigger. So it kind of goes with what you said in the beginning. It's all in, but not all or nothing. And so, the toughest thing is when I meet someone who's pregnant and I say, hi, I'm a lactation consultant and doula. If you have any questions, I'm here. And they go, yeah, what should I know? And my first question, I said, have you taken any classes? And when someone says, no, I haven't really taken anything, like that's also a misconception too, that it's easy, that they just crawl up and eat. For some babies, it will happen. It actually will if you can create the perfect environment. But
Yeah.
in the reality, it takes some time. So
It does. And it's important that people don't get frustrated. I thought it was so wonderful when I had twins, so I had to breastfeed two babies at the same time.
yeah.
And when I used to feed them, they would hold hands while they were
Oh,
both eating. It was the best thing in the world, and it made it easy for me to leave the house instead of bringing all the bottles and stuff. It was
right,
wonderful.
exactly.
I was a lazy mom because of it.
I don't think anybody that has twins could call you lazy. Like there's nothing lazy about it. And I think you probably agree too. Like, and often twins can be born premature or early,
Yeah.
and are the great pretenders and the great sleepers too. So the fact that you're smiling and you got to that cue point, like that's the point, is there are challenges in the beginning, especially if you have more than one.
Yeah,
But over time it gets easier. So that's also a
sure
good thing
does.
too.
It gets really easy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we often use donor milk in the NICU. And can you talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions about that too?
Yeah. Oh, so I'm very passionate about donor milk. So you could call it milk of another mother. You can call it pasteurized human donor milk. There's a lot of terms for it, kind of thing.
Okay.
But basically, studies have shown that the more premature a baby is, the more their gut is, we kind of say leaky gut. That there are things that can get in there that aren't helping build that healthy immune system. So that babies that come a little early and don't get to last the whole pregnancy, one of the things, the most important things that you can do to help their health is what are they eating and what are they taking in. And so somewhere probably about 10, maybe even 15 years ago, is they realized that babies under 32 weeks or under 1,500 grams, like a little baby, if those babies get mother's own milk or the milk of another mother, it's going to actually increase their chance of survival. And so that's been a common thing for premature babies in the NICUs over the last decade. What's been happening more over the last 5 years, really, is saying, okay, well, my baby's not 32 weeks, but it was born at 36 weeks and it needs supplementation. So the idea is it's an option for many women around the world. Other women might even nurse other people's babies. We don't have that structure, that environment, and we don't necessarily need to do that. So pasteurized human donor milk is, think of it as a live blood in a sense. And so the screening process is very similar to someone that donates blood. Women are screened and they're healthy. And it's usually women that can pump enough or have enough for their own baby and then can pump extra. And it gets pasteurized almost just like regular milk. It's a pasteurization process for 30 minutes at a certain degree. It kills off any certain pathogens and restores most of the immune boosters and the living cells that are in it. And so that's where there's the babies now, most across the country, premature babies get it. And so now one of the things to say, well, can I give it to my mature baby if I'm in the hospital and there is a challenge or is a problem? And so there are some hospitals, they call it bridge milk now. And so you can get that milk. And there's milk banks all over the United States too. So it's safe. If you had to have the order of supplementation, then it would be mom's own milk. But because there are challenges in childbirth, and especially if a baby goes to the NICU, so then the next one would be, okay, mom's own from the tap, pumped milk, another mother's milk that's pasteurized and safe. And one of the cool things is when a bottle of pasteurized human milk comes to the hospital, it's actually the milk of usually 5 to 10 healthy women that it's all pooled together. So think of that as an immune boost too. You get those antibodies and those immune factors and the brain food from several women, and then it's given safely to the baby. And so that way their gut doesn't have to work harder than a baby that might get supplementation through formula.
So I'm new to this topic of the donor milk.
Yeah.
Can anyone, I know you go through a screening, but how do you become a milk donor?
Yeah. Basically, that's it. Yeah, you go through. It's all similar to when you're donating things. So it's a full blood panel from the mom, all the tests. A lot of women have all the different testing through pregnancy now. So like for the basic diseases and things like that. They also can't be on certain medications. Certain vitamins are fine, and so these women are super screened. And then their milk, once it's gotten to the milk bank, is then screened once again and then pasteurized and then screened and checked again after the pasteurization process. And then it's flash frozen. So it's usually generous women that there's about 10% of women have, we call oversupply, where they can feed the village, as we say. And so in the village, they would have fed the baby. Moms that had 10% of moms that didn't make enough milk would line up for those women, just like with the twins, they come to the door. So this is like the modern way to help.
They're feeding their own babies, but then they're also making enough milk to feed other babies.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. The average body, to give you a number, makes about an ounce an hour. So in the beginning, so not in the first few days, but that's the goal by 2 weeks. And so women can vary anywhere from 24 to 34 ounces on average. A twins mommy usually makes 50 to 60 ounces in 24 hours. So it's as if they're feeding twins. So they feed enough for their own baby and then they have extra. And that's another cool thing, is the technology is amazing, again, even in the last 5 years too.
Amazing.
Wow. Thank you for explaining that. I think that's gonna be very interesting to a lot of our listeners. So many parents expect breastfeeding to come naturally. I know I did, and it did not come naturally for me with my first daughter. It was hard. I was shocked by how challenging it was, and honestly, how bad it hurt in the beginning. The things no one ever tells you. Now, for my second daughter, it was totally different. I knew what to expect, and it just went so much easier. But how can families tell the difference between sort of the typical challenges and then signs that they need to seek help from a lactation consultant or someone medical?
Yeah. So that's where when you're teaching classes or when you're teaching new moms, especially when they're pregnant, you can't really say like, yep, it's not going to hurt at all, because it's a small creature sucking on your anatomy upwards of 8+ times a day. And so I always say there's an initial tenderness that does occur. And if it hurts, like it's toe curling, then we have to break it down and we say, is there a mom issue and something we can look at with her anatomy? Or is it a baby issue? Is the baby got oral anatomy changes? Did dad have a tongue tie? Like, you kind of look at the whole picture. But the interesting challenge is colostrum is the first milk. And so it grows as the baby grows. It's really thick and sticky. So you take a robust baby, and bigger the fat pads in the cheeks, the stronger the suck too. I don't know how big chubby cheeks your kids have either. And so that's where the process is designed the first few days, that they have to work really hard to suck this thick stuff out repeatedly. But then the bonus shows up is usually between 72 and 96 hours, the boob fairy arrives and mom turns into shower heads and then shoots out. So then the baby's type of suck changes and the baby doesn't have to suck as hard. So it is hard. And we're this crazy culture where if we even lived 100 years ago, or if we lived in any kind of mammal community, you would have seen hundreds of people breastfeed. You would have seen bad technique. You would have seen good technique. You would have seen, but we're like, here you go. You never saw a baby. Go ahead, breastfeed. You didn't take a class. Less than half the women take a class on anything, childbirth or otherwise. So, and I was with you. Like, I thought, oh yeah, baby's just going to crawl up and eat. It's easy. There's not one person that told me it would be hard. There's not one person that told me you should take a class. And I asked the questions. And that's why it's so frustrating. And so the same thing, I mean, it's better. There's more childbirth classes. There's more learning and things like that. But it's gonna be a little uncomfortable, and then it's gonna get better. So the answer to that question is that after the first few days, if we're not peeing, pooping, and have signs of satisfaction, and everything's just not going well, and you want to cry when you feed your baby, there's something that usually can be tweaked or fixed. And that's the thing too. It's not like you're just stuck and you have to muddle through. Like, there's lots of pain management. There's lots of ways to change it. And like you said too, there's a lot of ways to solve the problem. Maybe sometimes people do need a break or they need supplementation. There's ways to craft the relationship. So I kind of think everybody should get a lactation consultant. I think every hospital should staff lactation consultants. And there are many, many people that can give lactation care. But the difference is the IBCLC credential, you have hundreds of contact hours too, as opposed to a OBGYN or pediatrician has what they learn in college or university, but also on the job. And so I think everybody should have one at least once and then go from there if it doesn't get better. But it should be super fabulous by the end of the second week for sure.
Good advice.
Yeah. So how do you help families let go of guilt when breastfeeding doesn't go according to plan? I'm especially thinking of mothers and their mental health.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I from the beginning, like, a huge proponent of focusing on mental health, because if you don't focus on mental health while you're focusing on the breastfeeding family, then you're not really helping with the whole experience, because one leads to other. And so knowledge, biggest thing is knowledge is power. And I know I keep saying class, but the more you know, the more you're going to say, okay, these are some strategies I need. The number one reason that mommies feel guilty is because they didn't know what they didn't know. And then they end up finding out after, oh, I could have used this device, or I could have had somebody come to help me, or my insurance might have paid for it 100%, and then they didn't. And so that's the challenge is that guilt comes from not knowing. And so that's problem one. Knowledge is power. And then knowledge two is most women feel bad if they don't feel like this is for all the things we do. If we don't feel like we've done the best we can. And the word best should never be involved in brand new parenting either. Like, it is, you just try and do what you can and then learn from that. And so guilt also, so it comes from not knowing. It comes from just thought you were prepared and you weren't prepared. 3, it comes from not knowing you could get help and help was out there. And then probably the last one is studies show that the more the people around you support you and give you love and positivity through this breastfeeding, just parenting overall, then that's going to give you less guilt. And so that's the thing. I often say, like, if people aren't there to support you for the first 2 weeks, send them away and send them back with lasagna. That's the biggest challenge. So, you have to surround yourself with people that are telling you to do a good job. And so it gets easier, but not everybody has all those things. And so that's the challenge. So,
Yeah, such good points. And I think there's a real societal pressure too. Would you say, like, I know when I've talked to moms where it's not worked out and they're pumping and using the bottle or, formula, there's definitely this feeling of letting the baby down, letting themselves down. And I think a lot of it comes back to this societal pressure, expectations.
Totally. Yeah. One of the things you're probably going to ask me about is like what are some other like legislative things I'm passionate about, is that Fun fact is that we are the only country that doesn't have federal paid leave.
Yeah.
And so the reality is 1 out of 4 women in this country have to go back to work in 2 weeks or less.
Awful.
And then that's a crazy number, right?
Yeah.
And so then studies show that if women that, even if they're going back between 8 to 12 weeks, if they know they have some paid leave and they have some support, women that don't have paid leave that have to go back to work, A, don't breastfeed as long as they want to, so that creates guilt, but B, 40% higher postpartum depression and anxiety in women that aren't financially supported.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem too with society. Not only
Mm-hmm.
almost every other country, like 180 countries, everybody gets it that if we help the mommy and the baby, even if they're not my family, that they're going to, in a sense, suck less off the healthcare system and make us all healthier too. And so, that's the biggest thing we could change as society, besides your own hormones and your own stress and your own maybe anatomical issues. That's a bigger thing. We're not all supported financially. Every other country is for like a year, and then their daycare is subsidized.
I know. And
yeah.
not only that, but the parents are sleep deprived on top of all these mental anxiety-ridden issues that are going on when you're thinking about, oh, I have to go back to work soon. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Yeah, and people aren't. So there's maybe like, it's not a federal thing. So there may be about 13 states that have some function of paid leave, but imagine if you knew your whole pregnancy, like you get to stay home, and hey, my partner gets to stay home with me. It just
Everything.
helps the whole system.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you're speaking our language, Donna. We wrote about this in our book. We've talked to local legislators. We feel very strongly about this as well. And I see it all the time in the NICU. We have babies in the NICU. Mom is back at work 2 weeks postpartum, and baby is alone in the NICU when they should be getting kangaroo care. And
right.
mom and dad, the only ones that can do that. Nurses and I cannot put a baby down our shirt, and they're not getting that skin to skin because mommy's back at work, or mom is at the bedside on a Zoom call and we're still doing the baby cares. So yeah, it is really frustrating and hard to watch. So thank you for bringing that again to the forefront. So important.
Yeah.
So, as pediatric professionals, we know feeding is about much more than nutrition. Can you talk a little bit about how breastfeeding or simply those close, responsive feedings support early brain development and attachment and even later learning?
Yes. So I am a huge fan of skin to skin contact for everybody. And if we take it back a little bit more to the basics, we are mammals, and we feed our young with our mammary glands that have a certain temperature and a certain flavor. And we are the only species that drinks another species' milk. But all mammals, they sleep together. And I'm not advocating, we're not going on that angle, but I'm just saying, like, skin to skin contact in all mammals and all creatures is normal and part of the biological wiring of the brain and the design kind of thing. And so skin to skin, oxytocin release, it's all about the love, is that it decreases stress for the baby. So especially those NICU babies, just skin to skin with their own mommies, partners, anybody, would really decrease the stress of the baby. Therefore, the baby's brain can do the things it needs to do. Skin to skin is super fabulous for the parents too, because it also decreases their stress. And that is what's going to kill us all, our high cortisol and high stress levels too. And so that's where thinking of, human milk, huge nutritional component, but also that skin to skin contact is great for as much and as long as you can. It's almost dose related in a sense. And then just spending time. And so sometimes people ask, like, pumping is breastfeeding is another phrase that we're using lately, is that if you can provide your milk, if latching isn't working, even providing some milk, it's dose related. Even a teaspoonful of human milk will help that baby. And how one of the ways that you can help build the immune system of the baby, which is one of my favorite things, is this spit backwash theory, is that when you have a baby that's actually nursing from you, the little spit tells the boobs to tell the brain, oh, I need antibodies and immune boosters for this baby. If we're bottle feeding, whether it's pumped milk or formula and we're not breastfeeding, doing skin to skin, breathing on your baby, kissing on your baby, loving on your baby is also an exchange of the pathogens. So it's telling that baby's body, I need these things. And mom's body within hours builds antibodies and immune boosters. So especially if you're premature, your brain is just open to all of that wiring. And so the more you have that exchange of oxygen, of breathing, of skin, of warmth, and in addition to the food, is really going to stabilize a newborn. And so that's the key.
So interesting.
That's amazing that
Yeah. Right.
care can do all those things. It's something
Right.
so simple, just cuddling your baby. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. And partners are great too. The only some things that they found is that usually the partner's chest isn't as warm as the one that has lactating mammary glands. So when you have a really hairless mammal, like a little baby, it warms them up, and it's a very simple, free way to do that as well. So
Let's step back a little bit and talk about how you've been advocating for breastfeeding rights, and also how you helped advance legislation protecting breastfeeding in public, which is so amazing. Looking ahead, what policy changes would have the greatest impact on supporting our young families during the first year of life?
Yeah, a couple layers to that one. So is up until like 2007 was Pennsylvania. So there's 50 states, right? So prior to 2007, there were 35 other states. I think I'm getting the number. It's almost close. Is that they had to put a law on the books to allow women to feed their babies in public. That's how ridiculous this country is. You can whip your boobs out for anything, but if you're actually going to feed your baby where they're hungry, we had to pass laws so women weren't harassed when they went to the Target or the grocery store. And so Pennsylvania in 2007 was behind, 35 other states. And so luckily there were women that got together back then. And I was part of a local resource organization for lactation consultants. And it was around Mother's Day, 2007. And she just said, this is ridiculous. Why are women in Pennsylvania being harassed at the mall? We need to pass a law too. And so it was very cool. I got to speak in the Grand Rotunda at Harrisburg. And basically what I tried to be not neutral, but basically say a baby's right to be fed wherever they are, no matter how they're fed, is a human right. So the fact that we need laws to protect a human right to feed when you're hungry, regardless of your age, is nuts, but it's what we have to do to protect the entire family. So that was a big thing. Over the years, I've also been involved in my credential, the IBCLC credential. We're internationally credentialed. It's a clinical credential, but not licensed. And so not licensed in many states. So we are licensed in like 3 or 4 states because it's a political process. So that's another challenge to get licensure, is you have to go through the politics and say, this is something that helps people. And this is something like, is it even a debate? Like, we have enough research to say if women can feed their babies human milk in any form, we're going to be healthier in a variety of things. So that's a challenge. And that's a huge barrier in many of the states, because that would open access for Medicaid and Medicare. There are individual states, again, that make their own rules, which is super great. Now we fast forward to just the reality that almost 70% of American women go back to work within the first 12 weeks. Workplace accommodations has been fabulous in just the last few years. In 2022 and in 2023, we've had workplace accommodations for people in federal jobs. We've had workplace accommodations for people like nurses and teachers, and there are certain jobs that are excluded from that. And there is the Family Leave Act, that where everybody can take, if they are in a company with more than 50 employees, they can take more than 12 weeks. Well, almost 50% of the companies in the United States employ less than 50 people. So we have legislation that helps half of the people, but not the other half of the people. And if we really want to look at not stereotypes, but the people that are going back to work at 2 weeks probably need that workplace legislation more than those that can afford to stay home and have work for a different company. So we're not helping our society either, unless we're pushing forward even more those workplace accommodation laws even more. So there was even a law in the last few years to help people when they're in the airport. that you can, people, their milk, they were trying to pump and take their milk. They're working back and forth. TSA agents were opening it, tasting it, checking it, throwing it out, saying like, exactly. So I think it was 2022 or 2023 is an act where you're allowed to fly and pump in the airport and take your milk with you. Like that, it's 2026.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I
that's
can't
the
believe I'm
craziness.
hearing this. That is
Exactly. And so individual companies can set up whatever they want. And that's the crazy. There is a business case for breastfeeding. There's a business case for allowing somebody in your business 2 or 3 times a day for 15 minutes to pump your milk. Well, they can do it in some jobs, but not get paid to do it. So you have to figure out, how am I going to take breaks but not get paid? That, again, it all goes back to, why are we creating these barriers and this stress when studies show a happy mommy is a happy family?
Yeah.
So a happy mommy at work is a happy employee. You'll have retention, she'll stay longer, she'll be happier. And many of the European companies have figured that out, but not the American companies.
okay. Great.
So yeah, federal paid leave should be the next thing. And we talk about what we pay for in this country, like it really would not cost that much to give paid leave to women, and create a separate fund, as some countries do too. So that's the next thing.
I'm
Thank you.
curious. You mentioned pumping in the airport.
Yeah,
Can mothers pump on an airplane? Are there
I don't
rules?
think there's any rules you can, but it's something called like something, I don't have it memorized, like the Fair Travel Act or something like that. Like you can, you can travel with your pump and your milk and things like that.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I'm sure people are pumping on the plane.
For sure.
The coolest breast pumps now, like that's also a big change in the last 20 years. We used to have, when I was starting out, we had these breast pumps. We'd call one the ice cream maker because it was huge and gigantic and noisy.
And noisy, so noisy.
Exactly. I can tell you how cool it is that I think it's great. These women have these very cool hands-free pumps.
Yeah.
And there's even one that is the flanges, the parts that attach to mom, are warm. And so you have women that are multitasking. Now, some of them multitask with these very cool hands-free pumps at work because they have to, because they can't get paid unless they're pumping and working at the same time, so it's crazy. But so I'm sure there's women pumping with planes. Yeah.
Because pumping makes you tired. It's fatiguing to pump and to like have to work and use your brain and be doing that all at the same time. That is
Oh my gosh.
really
All I'm thinking
unfair.
about is I Love Lucy with 2
Yeah.
breast pumps on her doing the chocolate.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah. And so that's also an interesting, like a trend too, if you're going to ask me about trends. Like, definitely when I started out in the beginning, you just want to help people to establish breastfeeding, and we do. And you want to be directly breastfeeding if you can. But if you can't, you have these other options. And it goes back to that guilt thing. Well, if I can't do this, can I do that? Breast pumps and portable breast pumps and wearable pumps have given women more control, which is also going to give you less guilt too. But you're right, it's too many things that you're having to do at the same time, for sure. And so that's the same thing. Every other country, if you're in Sweden, you could stay home for a year. You're in Europe, you're in United Kingdom. That's the challenge. It is all tiring, however you feed your baby, and if you have time and space to do that. But that's the challenge.
Wow. Thanks for doing all that work you're doing. So if you had just 2 minutes alone with every expectant parent before they left the hospital, what would be the most important advice you'd give them about feeding their baby and about trusting themselves as a parent in your vast experience? What would you say?
And I often got those 2 minutes with nice new parents as they left. The first thing is define your own success. Do what does work for you. You have to work a little harder in the first few weeks to establish that supply and get the relationship going. However you want to define it. If you want to pump once a day, if you want to breastfeed once a day, like, you have options. And so that's the key. When you build a milk supply, you have options. That's the first thing, define your own success. And the second thing is surround yourself with people that love and support you. And that's one of the biggest things. If your own partner or your own mother or your own mother-in-law is questioning you, okay, great. Well, are you starving that baby? Okay, well, my baby is. We keep track of pees, we keep track of poops, and we keep track of signs of satisfaction. And so those are like 3 specific things in one big thing. Surround yourself with people that are there to love and support you, because, well, for all things in life, but that makes a huge difference for a brand new vulnerable mom with her hormones a hot mess in the first 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, you said
Yeah.
a mouthful there.
Yeah.
Vulnerable, hormones a hot mess. We've been there. We have been there, right?
Yeah, you
Exactly.
have.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the helpful information today. It was so enlightening, and I hope mothers that are listening find something to take away from this podcast today so that they feel at ease, because breastfeeding is not easy. It's very time consuming, but at the same time, it's very bonding. No matter if you breastfeed or bottle feed, that bonding is there where you're snuggling in to do the feed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love comes in all shapes and forms.
It does. So, thank you to all of our listeners. We want to thank guests past and present for sharing their knowledge and work. A special thank you to our producer, Penn Ketchum. You can find our podcast wherever you listen, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We can't wait to learn from you and plant more seeds of learning together.